Let's switch now to tight ends. OJ Howard, 3 catches, 16 yards, a little bit of redemption there with Case Keenum, scores a touchdown. Quintin Morris, 2 catches, 14 yards. Both Howard and Morris had some really good blocks, as well as Tommy Sweeney, who didn't catch a pass, but looked pretty good blocking in the running game. The Bills are making it very hard to gauge where they are at in the tight end
Agree.
competition because the reports out of camp were Tommy Sweeney was doing good. OJ Howard was disappointing. Tommy Sweeney is taking the warm up with the ones. His name is on the starting graphic for this football game. And Quintin Morris is the first tight end out on the field Saturday with Josh Allen. So the Bills are making this extremely difficult to read. Where do you stand? And where do you think the Bills stand in this tight end competition right now?
Yeah, it was very interesting seeing Sweeney get some of the early reps over Howard, but I think that was more for like the way I'm justifying it in my mind is like, okay, this is Sweeney's last stand, right? Like we're
Yeah.
giving you these reps because we want to see what you can do with them because basically you have like one game left after this and the third preseason game and that's probably going to be reserved a lot of snaps for guys like Quintin Morris. Like I don't know how much. I mean, Tommy Sweeney's going to play, but like that third preseason game, if OJ Howard is not playing, like I think his fate's sealed, right? Like Tommy
Yeah.
Sweeney probably isn't making the team, or on the chance that he does, and they keep 3 tight ends, like that's going to be his only route to making the team. But it is hard to read. I think where I come out on this is like where I've been all summer. I've been pretty consistent on just like I just want to keep 2 tight ends. I don't know, the Bills are thinking like, okay, well, Quintin Morris, we're going to give him some action because we know he's going to be on our practice squad and we just kind of want to see what he can do in some game action. And then Tommy Sweeney, it's more of show us what you've got or this could be it for you. So even though, on the field, similar amount of time, it's for different reasons, I think. So, and it was nice to see OJ Howard get a little redemption. I think the talks of OJ Howard being a potential surprise cut candidate maybe are overblown. And I could look stupid about this if it ends up being that way because we saw them cut Jacob Hollister last year, which really no one thought that was not, OJ Howard's not Jacob Hollister.
Definitely not the same contract ramifications either.
Not the same contract, but never say never, right?
Yeah.
So I've learned my lesson, but I think that's a little bit overblown.
This is really tough, so I'm going to try to wrap my head around it. Like I have so many words that I want to say, but I don't know how to structure them properly. So I'm just going to go one at a time here. OJ Howard, he's your tight end too. He showed that he's a solid blocker, both in the pass game and the running game. He showed that while sometimes he tries to be cute and fancy, he still understands that he's a big boy and bodies people out and he can be a red zone target like he was on that play. I think he's your tight end too. Quintin Morris has now surpassed Tommy Sweeney for me as tight end 3 if we decide to keep 3 traditional tight ends. Number 1 with Quintin Morris, I think the reason why he saw snaps with the ones is because I think he has the game that most closely mirrors Dawson and Knox. I don't think Quintin Morris starting with Josh Allen was so much Quintin Morris being the best tight end after Dawson Knox. I think it was more like he was the closest composite to Dawson Knox on the roster. I think OJ Howard was brought in here to be tight end too. I think if Dawson Knox goes down or misses time, OJ Howard probably stays tight end too. So the Buffalo Bills wanted to put someone out there who was a composite, who was close to Dawson Knox out there, a guy who could split out into the slot, a guy who could, be a little bit more flexible. So I think they utilize Quintin Morris for that reason. But I also love Quintin Morris's game. I see a path for him to be here in the future. I thought Kendall was spot on in the post game show on Saturday night when he said that he's sort of diving into Reggie Gilliam backup territory, whereas Reggie Gilliam is that fullback tight end flex, but Reggie Gilliam leans fullback. Quintin Morris is that fullback tight end flex who leans pass catcher, who leans tight end. So while they have a similar body composite, they are a little bit different, but they can be utilized in similar ways. So I Morris's future on this football team, to me, he's surpassed Tommy Sweeney. I don't know if he's surpassed Tommy Sweeney in the Bills' minds, though. I like Tommy Sweeney, and that's one thing I want people to understand. Because I rip on Tommy Sweeney relentlessly this offseason, and that's because he consistently underwhelms. He's stiff as a board. He doesn't make plays. There's so many other talented football players that I'd rather make this football team, and that's not a knock on Tommy Sweeney, because 3 years ago when he was drafted, me and you were having the same conversation. This guy's gonna be a 10-year pro. He's gonna be the next Lee Smith. He's gonna be the perfect blocking number 3 tight end. He's a great locker room guy. We all sung kumbaya around Tommy Sweeney. We were his biggest fans, his biggest cheerleaders, but he just hasn't lived up to it. He just has not. And I'm at the point now where Quintin Morris has surpassed him on the depth chart. I'm at the point now where if Tommy Sweeney makes his football team and we release an Isaiah Hodgins or we release Raheem Blackshear or release a Balon Spector or a Quintin Morris and they get claimed off waivers, I'm gonna be legitimately like upset by that because I just don't understand what Tommy Sweeney brings to this football team. Like, can you explain it to me? Like, what does he contribute?
Again, this is another one of those where we get emotionally attached to
Mhm.
the player, but we aren't pragmatic with the approach to what he's brought to the field. And so the two things kind of clash with each other because, if he was someone that we could rely on, like we would expect that he should be tearing it up in the preseason, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we know as a rookie when he had to fill in, when Dawson Knox was hurt, he had a couple flashes in that preseason, and we kind of were like, oh, okay, like maybe this is going to come to fruition where like, okay, he's not going to be like relied upon as this huge contributor, but when asked to be relied upon, he's going to deliver. And that just hasn't been the case. And so, um, you could talk about, well, maybe he hasn't had the opportunity in like he has, like he's had chances, like he was out there, um, he was out there for 25 snaps, which was second most of the
Mhm.
tight ends behind OJ Howard in this game. So, and I think he played before OJ Howard in this game, like we said. So
Yeah.
at some point, you just have to draw that line and just say, like, love the guy, love what he could bring to the locker room. But like, if your tight end 3 is going to be one of your locker room glue guys, like, and it's not like a Lee Smith who's like been a vet and
Elite
kind of
blocker.
cut his teeth blocking for 10 plus years, then like that's not that important to me. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Mhm.
So and it's nothing against him personally, obviously, like we've said,
Yeah.
it's just the football side.
But then again, back to the Bills making this very difficult for us to wrap our heads around. It was Quintin Morris and it was Tommy Sweeney who got snaps with Josh Allen. OJ Howard never did. And then
Yep.
OJ Howard played well into the second half of that football game. Tommy Sweeney did not. So that's where it gets murky and it just
Very
gets
weird.
crazy, interesting, and weird. Maybe they're just trying to get OJ Howard acclimated to the offense. Maybe it's just
Third
really
preseason game will be interesting, right? If
Mhm.
OJ Howard plays a lot in the third preseason game, that will be more telling, I think.